just so you know. So whatever you share is on a video. And we can also do some editing. As I talked about the length of the resource center and how we've grown, there are two people on here that I want to have say hi. We started some and gained some new staff. We've got an education coordinator that's based up in the Chicago area, and that's Christina Banda. Christina, if you want to say hi and just introduce yourself real briefly, I would love to have you do. We've got time to do that today. We've got time to do some really neat things today.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Christina. Like Nancy said, I am based up in the Chicagoland area. I am the education coordinator, so I will be, my role is mainly making connections down here within the city and Cook County, the surrounding counties, to offer our services, our training, our workshop opportunities, all free of charge. So if you have a group that we can work with, I will put my email in the chat box, and you can also have my email so you can contact me as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. The other person that you see on here is Zach Wingert. He is our administrative assistant, and you're going to be getting probably a lot of emails from him as he markets our webinars, as he sends out information about the Family Resource Center. If you've got questions about that, get a hold of him. He's going to be developing flyers. He's going to be doing a lot of things. And I was doing all of this, and we have just expanded so much in the last year that we were very grateful that we were able to add staff, and incredible staff. Zach, introduce yourself for a minute.
Hello, everyone. As Nancy said, my name is Zach. I'm the administrative assistant, helping back up Nancy and Christina on their day-to-day needs. I'll be putting together flyers, promo, and everything for our webinars, as well as helping manage the social media stuff. So we'll be putting a lot more out there on social media. We're also going to do a newsletter each month. And so you guys will be seeing some stuff from me. I'll put my email in the chat for everybody. If y'all need anything, don't hesitate to, reach out to me. And then I am located down in the Olney, Richland County, Olney, Illinois area. So I'm about an hour and a half south of Charleston, Mattoon from the resource center. But yeah, if anybody needs anything, just let me know.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm based in Charleston, Illinois, home of Eastern Illinois University. We're right over on the Central East Side, for those of you that aren't familiar with that. This is a statewide program. The contract is held by the Our House, which is the facility in this area that has full services of just about anything that you need, including detox. But you may have been or heard of Seed Council over the years, Central East Alcoholism and Drug Council. And about 2 years ago, we decided we were tired of everybody thinking that we were a grain company when we'd introduce ourselves. So they did a rebranding, and that, even though that remains the legal name, we do business as the Our House at all the facilities now. So having seen that, and first time I worked at the Our House was in the 70s, folks. So it's been an interesting journey. I've worked here a couple of different times in different roles, and I've had chances to expand and learn and gain, and then seem to come back because this is home. The Resource Center, our goal is to provide information and support on substance use disorder and mental health issues, and now gambling disorder, looking at from the impact of the family. I am that family person. Through 4 different generations, from father to husband, who has 40 some years of recovery. So it is possible, folks. Son who's been in recovery for quite a while on his recovery journey. I have a grandchild, and as part of that, my husband and I have journeyed the grandparents raising grandchildren kinship care. And I do a lot of work with that at different levels and with different statewide organizations, because we've had experience with that due to substance use disorder and mental health issues. Currently, right now, we do not have one in here, but we've been through 2 different generations of that. So there's lots to share, lots of learning here. And it's been an incredible opportunity to be able to work with people. We do our services through website postings. So if you get a chance, and the website just keeps changing, we keep growing, we keep adding services. You can sign up for webinars on there. You can go to the website and pull up past webinars we've done, because we have a YouTube channel where they're recorded and posted. You can add to it. You can sign up for the newsletter. We have a video series that if you've been through grandparents raising grandchildren trainings or kinship care trainings, that we can give you access to it, but you have to have a previous experience in some training with that before we can release it. That was the agreement with Dr. Crumley when we posted it. Facebook page. Find our Facebook page. Now that Zach's on board, we're really getting lots of postings. Sometimes I'll see something and go ahead and post it because I look at it from a different viewpoint than Zach, and he finds other things. And so it makes it a really good resource for you. And there's oftentimes more than one posting a day. We're doing monthly webinars, minimum monthly webinars. I'm going to follow up with that in a minute because it's part of the resource center. And we can do individualized in-services on Zoom or in person. You know, Christina and I can make that happen. And oftentimes it's webinars we've done, and then somebody from an organization or an agency will get a hold of it. It's been me, and I'm hoping that that will soon be Christina, saying, I need this kind of tailored, this topic tailored more for our agency, our organization. Do a lot of work with the ROS groups, recovery oriented systems of care councils, and do some individualized focus with that. We do lots of conferences and exhibits. We were all 3 at the Prevent Child Abuse Conference and handed out tons of information, both in Spanish and in English. And I usually do a workshop at most of the conferences I go to. We find information. Part of what we're doing is looking for research information that we can pull in and offer. We do not do direct service, but we're a resource for helping you find someone that can, if you need that, or if we know about you and can keep in mind that this is somewhere when people call or ask for help that we can do that. And our services are now available in Spanish and English since we brought Christina on. She's taken a lot of the information that we had previously and has translated that to Spanish. So I encourage you, if that's something that's in your realm, to take advantage of. Okay, this training is going to be offered in Spanish in November. So this is one of the first steps that we have. And I wanted to make sure that that got posted. In December is down wrong. It's DIC instead of DEC. That happens. We miss something every once in a while. And maybe that's correct, Christina. Is that the way it would be?
Yes, it is, Nancy.
I'm learning, and I find that exciting. But it's December 5th, so I encourage you, if you are interested, to please join Christina in that journey. The next thing I want to talk to you about is we're really excited because we're bringing Jerry Moe in for a couple of webinars this year. If you aren't familiar with Jerry, Google him. If you've been through the Celebrating Families training that we offer opportunities for, and this year we're offering it in Spanish. And if you have a team that might be interested in going through that, get a hold of Christina, find out more about it, because we will be making it available to 2 teams, and the training will be done for the Spanish version. But Jerry, I've met him off and on over the years, and he's just this incredible person. And if you've been through the Celebrating Families, one of the prerequisites that's required is to watch the Lost Child video, which has been out, 20, 25 years, but it's him in his very young age as he started working with children from families where there was substance abuse and mental health issues. And it's really a journal of where they've gone back and they've looked at some of these children as they've grown up. So take a look at the Lost Child video if you get a chance. But Jerry's coming here. This is, Zach just sent me this morning. It hasn't even been critiqued, but I went ahead and put it on here because I thought that it was worth doing. Jerry is newly retired from the Hazelton Betty Ford, and he ran the programs for the children. He's as the national director. And when I first met him, Hazelton and Betty Ford weren't together as a group. And it's been every 15 years or so we would touch base. And now that he's retired, he's doing training. He's been doing a lot of work in Illinois. And I find that exciting, but he's going to do these webinars for us. And he was excited about doing that because the curriculum training that we are offering, the children's program kit that we are offering this year, and the Celebrating Families are programs from the National Association for Children of Addiction. He was one of the original people as a founder in that, and he is now their senior clinical advisor for the materials that are going out. And their information, their programs are evidence-based. And I encourage you to look all of that up or get a hold of me, and I'll be glad to talk to you about some of that. We have openings. We are providing the curriculum for the children's program kit, and I didn't post that in here, but I should have. And that is really a very flexible, wonderful. It's been updated, and the manuals are usable tools for working with children in all different kinds of settings that may think they're in this all alone, that they're the only ones that are experiencing the chaos at home. And get a hold of us if you're interested, because we will provide that training. And then we will provide the curriculum for you, and that starts in March. So looking at that, I just wanted to make sure that you saw that. Jerry will be back in June, because the other thing, and it's not on here, that he does is he is the senior advisor for Sesame Street Workshop. They brought on Chloe in 2019, and she has a mother that has substance use disorder, and that became the character that they asked Jerry for help with, and the issues around that. And so he donates his time because he cares enough about kids that he wants them to get the correct information and to feel like they're okay. And he's going to do a webinar around that and how to take that information and use it. And it's going to be called Sesame Street Parental Initiative, A New Look. And that will be in June. So keep your eyes open, and we'll make sure that everybody gets a chance. Okay, moving on. My wish for you is we'll discuss the impact of traditions on community norms and the families, discover the value of creating healthy traditional ideas that are unique and special for each, explore ideas for sober and healthy holidays, and explore how the stages of change. Those of you that deliver direct services are very familiar with the stages of change. And this I came across about 2 years ago, and I thought, oh, this just fits so well with what we're doing with traditions and how families can get through the holidays even if they're still in the middle of chaos. Explore how the stages of change can help families and communities move forward to healthy traditions. And I want to have some fun. So I'm inviting you, especially since we have a relatively small group. Put something in the chat. Zach can say, hey, Nancy, we've got a question, we've got a comment. I'm going to ask you for comments, and I have no problem as long as you're respectful of each other, of you unmuting yourselves and sharing, because I want to take away from this about as much as I give you. I want to know what you are doing, what your communities are doing to keep and build healthier traditions to help make a change in this world. This is the month of gratitude, and I think we have a lot of that to share. As we look at rituals and traditions, they're really all based on race, ethnicity, and culture. And I'm going to go up here because I'm going to be digging through papers as I do this. Race refers to the biological makeup of an individual. Ethnicity is the learned factors inherited after a child is born. And culture is a system of patterns and belief around the behavior that shapes your worldview and the members of society or of your community. And these are things that often get mixed up. And as I started doing this several years ago, I found this to be the most consistent type of definitions for each of these. Some ethnicity traits is a shared language, a shared culture, shared traditions, nationality, and religious or faith affiliations. When I use the word tradition, what comes into mind for you? Put some thoughts in the chat box. What does the word tradition mean to you, real quick? Honoring the past, sometimes an obligation. Family, okay. Things you do with your family, something nostalgia. Amen, that's me. Special event that happens on a yearly basis. Things that we enjoy, heritage. See, it means a little different to everybody, but it all has that same focus of coming together, of bringing something that's of value. Thank you. That's good. I think that one of the things, as I was doing this, that kept popping up in different articles and things I read, is that many Americans see alcohol and other substance use as synonymous with parties and barbecues, and that's part of our tradition. The culture often encourages alcohol and other substances as a coping mechanism. You know, even if you watch Hallmark's holiday movies, which I like to watch, oftentimes their social things revolve around wine or going out and eating, and there's alcohol involved. Or if they're stressed, and this happens in the reality of my world. Many people, for example, when they're stressed or it's been a bad day or bad things going, say, well, just relax with a glass of wine. And that's how it's addressed. It's acceptable. I'm not saying it isn't, but at the same time, oftentimes that message is sent that that's the way we cope with the world. And for many, this is what happens when that's how you cope with the world. I love this picture. I've used it off and on throughout the years in different trainings because there's just something about it that as it impacts the children in our lives, our littles, this is not unusual. And it's something that I am going to guess at least 50% of the people, even though we have a small group, it may not be this exact picture, but there's been a familiar example. When I look at this picture, I see my son looking up over the table with his father's alcoholism. 40-some years of recovery, folks. It's possible. Live in a college town, so of course, this is not an unusual thing as the ways to celebrate homecoming, you know, fraternity parties, those kinds of things. It's just an accepted way, and that is the tradition. But how healthy is that for our families and our communities? And of course, the other picture can be about anybody, the holidays and how we celebrate. Just thinking about that. Tradition is a pattern of behavior. It reflects and it reinforces family and community. We have looking at group values and attitudes or beliefs. Our traditions fit into all of that. Our traditions are primarily inherited through our parents or our ancestry. For some, the community will have more of an influence than others. But when I stop and think about my lifetime and where my traditions came through, they were mostly through parents and the history of the families. I live on the land that was my grandparents' land, and my father was born in the old farmhouse that we tore down. I mean, I've brought all that with me into what I do now, how I live now, and how I interact with my family. And it reflects our history of that ancestry. Have the traditions for me changed? Yes. They have some. I'll give an example. I got married very young. And my parents were divorced due to my father's alcoholism. He was a highly functioning person, but at 53, he died of his alcoholism. At Christmas, of course. So as we get close to the holidays, I kind of, get some of that nostalgia. But in our family, in the old farmhouse we took down, there was very much a tradition of how the Christmas, the turkey, the dressing. This is the thing that I'm going to point. We had sage dressing. That was the family tradition, and mashed potatoes and noodles, not mashed potatoes and gravy. And I took that into my marriage. And my husband came from a very large family. His father came from a family of 14. They came from West Virginia, and they brought those traditions up into our part of central Illinois. And I was just shocked the first Thanksgiving when I went to celebrate. They actually put oysters in their dressing. They actually did this and that in their dressing. It just wasn't acceptable to me because it went so against things that were important in traditions in my family. That seems little and it seems unimportant, but it is part of your history. Now, I am the one that loves sage dressing. I had to start changing my paradigm for that. And I know it's kind of a silly example, but it's one that at my age, when I talk about changing traditions, that's probably one of the strongest that sticks out in my mind. So the little things have such an impact. And it's kind of interesting. Oh, and at that Thanksgiving dinner, there were only 126 people there, and that was just part of the family out in the country, up in the hills. Families and communities may think that traditions only happen around holidays, but that's really not the case. We get, when you stop and think, an example, I said Eastern Illinois University is here. One of the big traditions here is homecoming. And as I grew up, I lived right off the main route of the homecoming parade, which had huge floats and big bands. And over the years, I haven't been able to share that with my grandchildren because, I don't know, the finances, the way things are, the traditions associated with homecoming have really focused more on alcohol use and partying than they have a lot of the traditional parades and that kind of thing. But there's magical moments that are created that aren't necessarily linked with our community traditions and things that aren't necessarily linked with our faith-based traditions and things like that. Our tradition was everybody came to our house because we could walk down to the corner and watch this big fancy parade. And we always had donuts and coffee, and people came from and family came from other towns to see the homecoming parade. So those magical memories that I have were created at random times, and that was part of that lifetime and was integrated into who and how I became. I'm an Eastern graduate. Most of my family is. even though the traditions connected with that school changed and adjusted some, it was an important part of growing up. And I look at this picture with the splashing in the water in the puddles. We had guardianship of our great-granddaughter. And when she was 3, one of her favorite things, she could not wait to get out in the rain. Now she's 6. She's living with dad and bonus mom, doing very well. But the thing is, they'll always say, every time it rains, she wants to go out and splash in the puddles. And I said, well, that was kind of our tradition. That was something fun that we could do. And another thing is, many families have game night. That's a tradition. Until my children grew up, there was just my sister and me. And as our families grew up, even into early adulthood, every Christmas Eve, we had a game night. Both our parents were gone, and that was what we did with our family. Now those young adult children now are growing up and have gone many different ways. So that is something that we've given up, but I've watched them integrate that into their environment. As we look at different things that are traditions, how you handle graduations, how you celebrate that. Many communities in the fall hold fall festivals, Halloween events and festivals. This is a wedding. I love this picture of the dancing. This came with a Cinco de Mayo article that I had. And a lot of communities, especially if you do baseball, soccer, softball, at the end of the time, you always have some kind of potluck. So these are all things that evolve into traditions and rituals for families. They're important because they help us create our own identity. When you look at development, if you look at the developmental stages we go through, we try to figure out, who am I, as you're moving through those stages and become more grown up as you're adulting. Traditions help define what's unique and important to your family and to your community. What is your priority? What is the environment that you want your family to live in, and how does that impact your community, and how does your community impact you? And that kind of goes back to a lot of what are the acceptable norms in your community. Traditions can help you understand what to expect in the family and the community and in social settings. In other words, what's ahead? If you're invited to such and such a party, is there going to be alcohol there? If you're early in recovery, how are you going to handle that? Is it something that you choose not to be around no matter where you are on your recovery journey? Those traditions, that event's tradition may be to serve alcohol. How do you handle that? It impacts your life and what's ahead. And our traditions can help clarify and support our values. Who you are, who you will be, who you will become, who you want to be. Any comments or thoughts? Open up and I'll be glad to listen or have you share.
Someone mentioned vacations being a tradition.
Oh, absolutely. And I was always envious of families that could do that. How do you get vacations together and travel together and do things together? I know many do, and I think that's wonderful. And it's a strong value. 11 years ago, for our anniversary, my husband and I, yes, I kept the guy. 40 some years later, I've kept him. My sister and our oldest son wanted to do a party, and not a party, but a weekend event with our families and invite friends. And we found a place about an hour away, big, beautiful cabins. You'd have fire pits and everything. And we did that for our anniversary. And since then, in that 11 years, that's become a tradition for us. That's our family vacation. I just think that's a wonderful, I'm glad you shared that, because that has become a tradition for us. Another example is something as large as traditional family recipe that's based on cultural heritage. I talked about the sage dressing. That is cultural heritage from my family. versus the oyster dressing that was from my husband's, as little as it seems. And then there are the small traditional family sayings that may be started by a grandfather or something that my father-in-law, every time you walked into his house, whether my mother-in-law had cooked or not, it was, come on into the kitchen, let's sit down and eat. And it kind of came funny, but he was serious in his upbringing with that family of 14. That was important. That's how they showed hospitality, was being able to share. Their tradition was to share whatever food they had available, etc. So even though it became kind of funny to those of us from the outside, or even the grandkids as they were growing up, it was an important part. It was very much a tradition. So I'd be really interested, do any of you have something like that that you could share? Is there a family saying or something like that that has become important to your family or your group?
Somebody mentioned sometimes I don't think it's a tradition until it's actually not done.
I just saw that posted. I'm going to have to pull that into this presentation. I think that's very true. I think that's very true. When it's suddenly missing, you realize that that was part of your tradition. That was part of what made you who you are and brought you to where you are, even if it didn't start until you were an adult. No family sayings. Okay, we'll go on. I understand that. Without your family or tribe traditions, many of our strong beliefs and teachings of a family and community get lost through the generations. That I would like to know. If you can think of a tradition that's kind of got waylaid, that may have been there as you were growing up, that was in your community, that is part of your family culture, I would be interested in seeing what those might be that got lost through the generations. One that came up several times as I was reading about traditions and things was folk dances. And I think a lot of them are gone today. But those cultures that have been able to keep them going, I so envy almost. As I was growing up, my parents, prior to their divorce, did square dancing. We're in not the most rural part of Illinois, but we're in rural country, farm country, I guess is what I'd say. And it was very big. I can remember my parents square dancing and everything. You don't ever hear about it around here now. It's a traditional folk dance that's just not recognized much anymore by the groups and the communities and the culture that spend a lot of time with that. And I think that ends up being something that's lost. So now I think in some ways, line dancing, this thought of as being rather country focused, may have taken the place of some of that. But as a child, I loved to go and sit around the outside and watch that. Many traditions often influence the community attitudes towards substance use and abuse. Consider the number of liquor establishments in communities. If going out means going to the local bar because the local bar is about the only thing there is to do in a community or a neighborhood. Being a more rural person, I kind of speak for that perspective, but I've worked all throughout Illinois for many years and across the United States in a lot of instances. And neighborhoods can be that way. They can be that closed neighborhood. And if there's more liquor establishments than churches or faith focused facilities, if there's more liquor establishments than recreational opportunities for families to have healthy fun and create traditions, it can be a concern, and it impact, what your traditions are impact how you grow up, how your families are supported. the type of community events that don't use substance use as part of it is a positive thing. I mean, it's looking at how these influences impact not just families, but entire communities. We know that families and communities are unique, and the traditions created by each are going to be unique to that family and community, as well as to each individual member and how you do it. I really like the fire pit picture here, because this looks a lot like what we do those weekends that started out as celebrating my wedding anniversary. I won't tell you how many years. Has become very much a family tradition for us. One of the first things we do when we go for that weekend and bring everybody together with their kids and grandkids and everything is we start that fire and we sit around and tell stories. And that fire doesn't go out the entire weekend. And a tradition has become everybody leaves but my sister and me. And the two of us will sit down on Sunday morning after everybody's headed back home, just the two of us, and kind of discuss the weekend and make sure the fire's out. That has become a tradition. Okay, that's flipped backwards. Tradition creates a connection to parents, caregivers, siblings, community at large. They help our children feel a sense of belonging. And though that's an extremely important connection. Well, I'm going to have to move this stuff because I can't see what I'm looking at here. Okay, I'm just really quick. Going back to, I looked at the chat. Every Halloween we cook meatloaf. Oh, I love that. The kids look forward to coming back from getting candy and eating a big dinner. I love that. Okay, we just did that one. The impact on children and families, it's a great way to provide stability. And in this chaotic world that we've got, as families have changed their structure, we need stability and routine in our life. We need to be able to create memories that our children can look forward to when they're young and look back on as adults. And sharing the loss of the square dancing. I look back on that as being a good time in my life. My parents were together. They had great friends. And some of those friends I stayed in touch with within our community long after my parents were gone. Our traditions tell our children a personalized story about who they are and what's important. And I know some of this is repetitive, but I think it's important to look at all the research that's out there on that. I found this and I think, amen. When you're young, your grandparents try to tell you their history. You don't care because it doesn't interest you at the time. I can think of times I've tried to tell stories to my children when they were younger and to my grandchildren. We had two of them we had guardianship of. And you tell them and they look at you like, I don't want to hear it. What are you talking about? I don't have any interest in that. Why are you telling me that? And the thing that's interesting, my two oldest grandchildren are both, one lives in California, the other one lives here and had lived with us. She's just incredible. And she just turned 29 and she just adopted her year-old niece and has taken on this family. And it's interesting because we live in the same town. And so, of course, we spend a lot of time together. And right here, later on, you wish you had written down what they said. It's not unusual for her when she's here. She'll say, do you remember trying to tell me about this? Now she wants to hear those stories. She can remember those pieces. And I'm a big believer in we need to tell our stories. And those of you that have been in any trainings I've done or workshops I've done know that I say until we get past the stigma of substance use disorder and mental health issues, we're not going to have the success for recovery that we really want to have and people deserve. And a lot of that is by telling our stories. what's that history? And I've got lots of stories to tell, but right now is not the time. Share your stories, share your success stories. And I love it that a lot of the Ross groups are doing that over the holidays. Come and share your story. I know the local Ross groups here are actually doing radio spots where people get 45-second shots at just sharing a holiday success story that is part of a recovery journey, either as a family member or as someone that's had substance use disorder and is on a recovery journey. Not all traditions are major events. Some are smaller, private interactions. They may act like a secret language between parents and their children. I would be interested in knowing if any of you, either through your culture or just through your family, have or a look that you share with your children or another family member that is a secret language that has become a tradition. Anyone have that they can share? Okay. In a chaotic and confusing world, sometimes a little consistency can be exactly what we need. We know that when rituals and values, when you violate them, sometimes it results in substance misuse and other emotional issues. That's why, as we looked at that picture of the little boy peeking over the table, my children were about that age when my husband, and yes, he knows I talk about it and he's okay with it, was in his alcoholism and in his active use, missed a couple of Thanksgiving dinners, left an empty chair because he just didn't get home from work. When he got home he didn't get home from the bars, what he didn't get home from. And I think about that, and then my son's journey to find his own recovery. And that picture stands out for me, and I think that many families have experienced that. It's what our environment has taught us. Support and communicate in a family's belief system. It can instill faith and transfer the family's perspective on their life experiences. It can change things. Okay, I want to try breakouts. I'm going to put you guys to work. I want you to talk to each other. I want you to share and then do some report out. We're doing really good on time. I'd like to hear some of what you were able to share. Let's start with group one. I put this is a gathering of pictures that I just kind of think throws out the value of traditions and families and how we evolved it. I don't know any of them, but I could have probably fit into most of them. So who was in the group one that could share some of what was going on? Or even two or three of you are more than welcome to share.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay, I can share because I don't only have a few minutes. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to log off. But a lot of what we talked about is making new traditions. Because it's like our families didn't do it, but like our child wanted to do it, or something that they enjoy doing. They wanted to make sure it continued to do with that certain person or that certain place. And so every year, if it didn't happen, or they requested to have it happen, because they would miss it if it didn't.
Right.
So that was enjoyable to hear. And it was even starting at a very young age of a child, like, I want to still do this with dad,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing it was something they would miss out on if it didn't happen.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. And we're also saying how the holidays are very hard for a lot of people, because even if they are invited someplace, they're happy about that. But then they realize that they might be triggered by having something or some alcohol or whatever. So
Right.
they choose not to go, but then it's worse because then they're all alone, and that's hard. So they have to figure out what they're going to do to make a new tradition for their holidays.
Right. And that's very true. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here before we sign off. So thank you. I'm glad you got on, even if it was for a while.
Yeah, thank you. It is a very interesting topic. I wish I
Yeah.
could stay much longer, but
Okay, anyone else from group one? Yeah, just unmute. I'm not here. Whoever's talking is not me, is still muted. Martha, are you sharing or are you? All right, let's go to group two and then we can come back if we need to. What about group two?
I think we were group 2.
Oh,
Was
you
I?
were. Who's group one?
Yeah, I think
I-
we were.
I think we were group 2. So just to
Okay, thank you,
clarify.
Elizabeth.
Okay.
Who was in group two?
I was
Yeah.
in group 2.
Or not group two, I mean group one. I took a picture of the groups. Let me see here.
Nancy, I think
Barb,
I was
Chris-
in group one.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
I just
We talked about a lot of like our holiday traditions and
Okay.
just the different things, you know, and a lot of it comes back to just, you know, adding new ones on. And Christina was talking about how some of hers came since after the pandemic. And I've noticed a lot of people have new traditions now
Mhm.
because of that.
Mhm.
So it was real interesting. I enjoyed that.
So good. That's one reason I wanted to do it, because I think that as we hear about other people's evolving traditions, ones they've lost, ones they've gained, things that can help them move through healthier holidays, that's really great. Thank you, Barb. Anyone else from group one?
I really enjoyed the breakout rooms because you get to hear other people's traditions and like
Right.
oh, that's a cool idea or that's a nice idea. I think I'm going to try that one with my kids this year. And we also talked about how a lot of traditions kind of sometimes revolve around food. And then food becomes a big tradition. Like Michelle said, they have like a chili cook-off. And then it started with the men, saying, I cook the best chili, and then now the women are, also getting into that tradition. So it's cool. It's nice to hear what other people do, their traditions, and then you get ideas to things that you never thought of, and you can start doing them with your own family.
Yep, that's very true. Because I think we're all looking for ways to make things happier, healthier, stronger. Well, that's great. What about group three? I've got your names, folks.
We talked a little bit about we shared a little bit about our different traditions that we do around the holidays, and then one of the things that was mentioned that stood out to me was that we haven't really talked about much yet is holidays being, or that we have talked about, is holidays being attached to maybe a negative, has a negative connotation with it. And so some of those traditions, as the years go by and maybe they change, maybe being, not being so freaked out or about those changing. And I believe that was shared, Veronica shared that. And that stood out to me. I really enjoyed the breakout room, talking with everybody. Learned a little bit of Greek too, thanks to Danny. So that was kind of our breakout room.
I see that Danny's on, but I haven't seen him. Hello, Danny.
Hi, Nancy. How are you? I have COVID, so I'm laying in bed.
Oh no.
That's why my camera's off.
It's going around here too. Danny was in the last go round of celebrating families, and we've touched base since. So he's a good resource.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
he's part of a Ross group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that's great. And I just put the pictures up here to kind of, does anyone else want to share anything before we move on?
One thing that I want to share is I shared with my group a tradition that I started with my own kids. So I have grown kids. I have a 22-year-old and I have a 19-year-old. So sometimes they, like they have their own lives now. They want to go out with friends. So we set aside one weekend a month to do things as a family. So I book them kind of, and so they dedicate that weekend to us, and we all vote on the kids vote on what they want to do that weekend. And so then we like that weekend is just for them, because life gets hectic, life gets it's busy. And so at least one weekend a month, I have all four of my kids together and they bond as siblings. And that's one thing I want them to keep doing as grown-ups when they have their own lives, when they have their own, if they have kids, if they get married, whatever they decide to do when when they're older. I still want them to, I would love for them to continue setting aside, maybe not the whole weekend, but maybe one day a month to just hang out together as, as brothers and sisters, so that they continue that relationship and that bond.
Well, I think that, I really appreciate that, because that's what happened with our anniversary celebration. Is there was just my sister and me. She has 3 grown children who have children. I have 3 grown children that have children, and I now have great grandchildren. And the fact that we've been able to manage, we couldn't do it during the pandemic, which is why we lost a couple of years in there, because we couldn't bring all those people together. Is as a family, we were able to start a new tradition, and it's really meant a lot to us. It's just been incredible how even the little one, our great granddaughter who went one time and is now with her dad, absolutely could not wait to go to that weekend this year. It is now, she talks about whitetail crossing. When are we going again? How long is it going to be? And her dad and his wife, he was married into the family. He is no longer married as part of the family, but he's family because he's her dad, and she lives with him and we have a good relationship. They've been brought in. So it's part of that tradition. We create new ones that have meaning to us and are much healthier, hopefully, for us as we move forward. So I'm totally agree with you, Christina. I just put in these dates to kind of think about, I pulled up holidays listed, federal and state, and it came up with 344 on the list for the year. I'm going, oh my gosh, these are things I've never heard of. But what it drove home to me more this year than any past was all these times the traditions and rituals are connected to. We're talking about 344 different ones. And I'm going, wow. And it was all different kinds of cultures and ethnicity and race and faith and things, dates listed, but that's really powerful. And I'm going, how do we make us all work together? And when we put up the winter holidays, just looking at what's ahead, of course, this week we have Thanksgiving. Hanukkah starts December 6th. And runs through December 15th. And our Facebook will be posting some things in regard to that. I put down Christmas Day, but for many people, Christmas Eve is just as powerful a day. And it used to be for us. That's when our family used to have game night, was on December 24th. New Year's, January 1. New Year's Eve for many people is a major party time. And it was for us back in the day. And I look at that and I think, I'm so glad that that part of the craziness is gone for us, because it wasn't healthy and it wasn't a good part of our environment. But now we have new traditions for Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, and they're good. And then looking at Kwanzaa starting December 26th through January 1. When Kwanzaa became known and accepted as a holiday. I was really fortunate where I was working. We spent a lot of time learning about that and those 7 principles and the importance to the communities and the families that recognize Kwanzaa is wonderful. I'm going, what a great way to live, those 7 principles. So it's learning more about holidays that everybody experiences. And there we go. 7 principles. How things can change. I want to keep an eye on the time because I definitely want to make sure I get to the stages of change. Grandparents may not be able to prepare large family dinners anymore. There may be financial stress. Maturing children want to make their own traditions. And sometimes that's hard on us older folks. You want to change it? I did the same thing to my parents and my family. Yeah, I adjusted it some. Parents may not live together, so children don't get to spend time in one place with one set of traditions. They spend time with differing traditions and rituals. I really saw this being very true with my great-granddaughter. She moved from our guardianship to her dad. Differing traditions and rituals, they're wonderful, but she has a couple of different sets, and she actually takes one with her. When she was living with us, even as a 3-year-old, she would bake pumpkin pies for her daddy. He was living with us at that time too. And today I will be picking her up, and she will be staying overnight here and through tomorrow, because then on Thursday they're going to her bonus mom's family that does a great big dinner. But we are making pumpkin pies for her to take. That was very important to her. And so that has become a ritual generated by a 3-year-old that is now 6. Children may be placed in kinship care or foster care, so they're in those different environments. There may be a death in the family that changes the family structure. Our holidays changed when my father died prior to Christmas. My kids were in school. One was just short of high school. But the way we celebrated and how we managed the holidays took a big change for a while. And then my sister and I brought us together and started game night on Christmas Eve. New marriage or relationship means new obligations for the family and community celebrations. And just community safety can be a concern when it comes to how you celebrate, especially in the environment that we're seeing now. So thinking about how things change. It's little memories that will last a lifetime. And I so believe that. I keep going back to my dressing, that's really minor, but it was a big thing to me. And so much of what we do does revolve around food. The local ROSC councils here in this area, and I'm not sure where this came from, but they had 10 healthy habits, activities, and tools to help someone in recovery, on a recovery journey to get through the holiday. And I think that as we look at it from the family aspect, this is a family resource center. How do we support families that are living in the chaos of somebody else's use? Well, we have to address both sides of that in order to really get where we need to go. And I think this is great. Attend a recovery meeting, talk to someone who supports recovery. Don't isolate. Have a plan. Avoid stressful situations when you can. Volunteer in the community. Make your own holiday traditions. If the old ones involve substance use, it's not a good fit, etc. Start your own. Reward yourself. Make a gratitude list. And remember that feelings will eventually pass. I pulled some of these things from some support information and just generated out of having lived with someone in recovery for 40 plus years, and how he has managed that many years of a successful recovery journey. Plan soft social events. Don't get where things are going to be all chaotic and crazy. Attend family events when substance use is not an issue. That was really important in the early years. Attend safe community celebrations. If they have a big beer tent and that's the primary focus, don't go. Or even help start community celebrations that don't involve that. Enjoy your community holiday parade. take the kids in the family, go. I put a picture of the New York Thanksgiving parade because I really got to see it in person. My son and his first wife lived there, and I had a grandson that we would go visit, and we went a couple of times on Thanksgiving. The other set of grandparents lived right down where it went through their area, and it was incredible. That was very much a tradition for my grandson to see the big Thanksgiving Day parade that we often watch on TV. Take time to attend area holiday light shows. Those are big around here. Our communities, even our smaller communities, have wonderful light shows that you can drive through. This week in our area, there were 2 really nice ones, and it was the opening night, so you got to walk through on opening night and take pictures. Celebrate with your faith community. Participate in recovery self-help groups, both family members and people on their own recovery journey. Volunteer to help community programs for those in need. Some other tips for staying sober. This came out of a new thing that was just published by Hazelton Betty Ford. Tips for staying sober through the holidays: put your sobriety first. And as a family member, put the sobriety first. Practice an attitude of gratitude. Practice a spirit of giving. Be kind and loving towards yourself. Take care of yourself as a family member, as someone in recovery. You deserve that. And then you can kick back and relax and enjoy the holidays. What I want to do is kind of talk about the stages of change. I've got 2 or 3 slides that were offered by Sandy Swenson. And it just seemed to fit for me, coming from a treatment background, and I used to do years of direct service as well as working at Prevention First for a number of years. Looking at the home was full of pleasant aromas, laughter, and things to be thankful for. But things quickly changed when addiction joined the family. And those previous memories and traditions now feel like they happened in another lifetime. I think that that's true for many people who have an actively using person in their family, whether it's a child, a spouse, a parent. Another thing she offered: how can we possibly enjoy the holidays when our loved one is addicted and they can't stay sober from alcohol and other drugs? This hit me because it reminded me of a couple of Thanksgiving dinners that my husband didn't make it to. Now that was 40 some years ago. But it's still, you get that little trigger of, oh yeah, I remember what that felt like. And she shared the holidays might look completely different nowadays. The laughter and smiles have been replaced with tokens of addiction. An empty place at the table, there's the chair, or unspoken feelings of disappointment, anger, and fear. Whatever we feel, thankful we're not, and we're coming up on Thanksgiving. So how do we help people get through that? I'm a big believer in looking at the stages of change for everything that we do, for our behaviors and the things. And looking at that, it seemed to fit with some of the suggestions that she came up with for getting through the holiday with that empty chair. Looking at pre-contemplation, and I'll explain what those mean in a minute. Going to contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. And I think we all know what relapse means in this field. So let's take those and apply them, because when you're doing an assessment of someone, when you're doing a continued stay for services for someone, we use the stages of change. That's one way we see how success is going. Some tips for change and facing the holidays. When you look at the stages of change, pre-contemplation, you're going, oh, this is crazy. It's not what it used to be. I don't know if I'm ready to let go of expectations and feel my feelings. I just don't know if I'm there. But she suggests that pre-contemplation, in order to move forward and have health and wellness as a family member for your holiday, you have to start considering pre-contemplation. Let go of your expectations. Don't go back to your old expectations, but feel your feelings and be willing to accept those. Then we move into the stage of contemplation. Appreciate the family members who are here, the ones that do show up, the ones that aren't leaving an empty chair. Appreciate them, celebrate them, share with them. Be ready to start making some changes and some acceptance that you can take care of yourself as a family member, even if the person you truly care about is still living in an empty chair. The stage of preparation. Plan and start your own traditions. And we've been talking about that for this last hour with ideas. How do you do that? Well, it's not easy, but start thinking about that. Start planning, start writing down ideas, start thinking of things that make you feel good, make you happy, that you can build on. Take an old tradition and adjust it. And then actually move to the action stage, where you're intentional about your gratitude for the things that are there, for the people that are there, for the opportunities to add a new tradition. This sounds so simple. It's stages. It may take 2 or 3 years to get there. And if you're working with people, you need to be able to convey that. Betty Conyers, who works for Hazelton, has written a lot of books that Hazelton has on recovery and that I use in trainings, is the one that took the stages of change and kind of applied those to how does that impact the family member. And the information that Sandy Swenson came out with, tips to get through the holidays, they were just such a good fit. I had to put them into a chart. So here we are. And then the maintenance, let the healing happen. Hope will come. Continue those traditions. You may need to reevaluate where you're at with them at some points, but maintain that willingness and gratitude that you can be happy and healthy and make it through the holidays on your own, even if the person you care about is still struggling. The more you can do that, the more support in the long run you will be giving the person you care about. And be aware, you or the person you care about may have some relapse. And that's part of that reevaluating. Oops, what did I do wrong? What do I need to change so that I can go back to preparation, action, and maintenance? Looking at that, I thought this was really a good fit and some good guidelines to offer to families that are struggling with that empty seat at the table when the holidays come. And some last thoughts I'll throw at you. Where are you at the stage of change in this holiday season? Do you need it? What tradition are you going to experience, enhance, or work on creating? And above all, I wish you to have a safe and peaceful holiday, whatever your holidays are, as you go through this next year and as you go through this season. Some resources. I know these are just screenshots, but excuse me, because I was kind of putting some things in. Be aware that PBS has some good things online. 7 ways kids connect to their family heritage. Looking at Sesame Street and communities. And this now will pop up when you put Sesame Street and communities into Google, it'll pop up Sesame Street workshops. These are the things that Jerry Moe has worked with. And these are all the different topics that they have videos and tables of index tables of all kinds of things that you can pull up that are for children, you know, ages almost 0 to preteen, looking at all these different things that it offers help for. I think that it's an important thing. And the last thing is, this is really a cool book. I Am Thankful, a Thanksgiving book for kids. It's a good resource that kind of brings in different cultures and experiences that are related to that. And I have come within 2 minutes of the time that we're supposed to be on. I really appreciate this group getting together and discussion and the things you've shared. As I sign off, you will have a survey pop up. I would appreciate you taking, it's just 6 quick things. If you would fill that out, and we will be sending out certificates probably not until after Thanksgiving because Zach and I are basically off the rest of the week. And we will send certificates, send a copy of, you're welcome to have a copy of the overheads. I'll convert those to a PDF and you can have those, which will give you some resources. And we will send out some flyers. We'll send out the save the date for Jerry. We'll send out the flyers for Christina's coming up. And real quick, I'll tell you, we have a busy spring coming with 2 webinars, some months coming up. So we'll try and get that out to you too, so that you can at least see what's coming ahead. I thank you. Have a very blessed Thanksgiving. And I'm going to. Okay. Mwah. Have a good time and thank you so much. Bye.